They're checking the mic to see if it's working in the room. Is anybody in the room hearing me?
It got quiet. I'm not sure they can.
Well, we can definitely hear them.
Yes, we can.
Right?
That is correct. Morning, Jesse.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Morning, June.
Thank you, Sal. It's very strange talking through the mask and hearing the feedback. But good morning, everybody, both those who are here in person and those who are joining us via Zoom this morning. For the benefit of those who are watching, I would like to announce that we do have a quorum between the council members who are here in person and those who are attending remotely. And in case you don't know, raise your hand when I call your name. Nick Hausman, who is the chair of the Student Government Association, Council Member Alex Hammond, Council Member Steve O'Shaughnessy, Council Member Molly Clough. I'm June O'Neill, chair of the College Council, and joining us remotely are council members Harold Johnson. Hi, Harold. And Jeff Cole. Hi, Jeff. Is there anybody I missed? Okay, so welcome to the council members, and you'll hear from some of the people who are seated around the table and on Zoom as we move forward with our agenda.
I think you missed Rich D'Addario.
That's not on the agenda. Is it's nice to see people. And everybody says, oh, it's good to see you. And I always reply, it's good to be seen, as opposed to the alternative.
June, can you hear me, June?
So moving right along, the first item of business is the approval of our meeting minutes from the last meeting.
I move they be approved as submitted.
Move that the minutes be adopted.
Correct.
Is there
Second.
A second? Thank you, Harold.
You missed Rich D'Addario. He's on as well.
Yeah, Rich D'Addario is up.
Oh, Rich is there. Hi, Rich.
But not gonna, he's not gonna be there long though.
That's okay.
I just wanted to make sure you had a quorum.
Yep, thank you. Rich has a brand new knee, and today is his first day in physical therapy, so we wish you the best, Rich. He's good for
Thanks,
another
guys.
50,000 miles. Okay.
I'd be happy to just get 1,000 miles on it. All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Okay.
I'm
Take
gonna,
care,
I'm gonna
Richie.
leave now. Yep, bye-bye.
We have everybody, one way or the other. That's good. So we've had a motion moved and seconded that we adopt the minutes. Any additions, subtractions, changes? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the minutes as submitted, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimously adopted. Okay, now it's time for my chair's report. Well, it's been a while, and there have been a ton of changes. So I'm going to take a few minutes to introduce a few of the new people, either new to the campus or new to their positions since we last met. And I'm going to start with our officer in charge, who I call the president, Dr. John Graham. And you're going to hear more about him, and I will leave. His bio would take a really long time, but you should know that he has literally hit the ground running. He was the very first person that Chancellor Malatras appointed to a position when Jim became the chancellor. So that tells you something. Your official title was student liaison.
Yep, senior advisor to the chancellor and student advocate.
Student advocate. And that was also the first person to hold the title of student advocate. And where did Nazali go? Oh, okay, stand up, Nazali. See, I am standing up, so. Nazali Kirkjian is the chief of staff to the president, and she worked for 5 years or so with Dr. Graham at Suny Central. So when he was named to come here, he asked Nazali if she would agree to join him. So they have a history, they like each other. They know that they work well together, and I will say that they both play well with others. So that's an important thing. All right, so I just want to make sure you knew Nazali. And if you don't, make sure you introduce yourself to her. Also joining us today for the first time in person is Patrick Quinn. Patrick is our new Vice President for Enrollment Management. Stand up, Patrick. Yeah, I know.
The pillar's right there.
Make sure you look at the camera. If you would just give us the Cliff Notes version of Patrick Quinn so people can get a sense of you.
Sure, happy to do that. I have a long career in higher ed, and particularly in admissions and enrollment, over 35 years. But I would say my fondness for the North Country, many, many years ago, actually almost 41 years ago, November 12th, so 2 weeks from this coming Saturday, I was running on a golf course in Malone, New York, at the New York State Cross Country Championships, high school championships. So that's where my love of the North Country started, and it's amazing that so many years later I'm here working in the North Country. So that's a little bit about myself. I don't want to bore you with all the other details. So thank you.
Thank you and welcome aboard. We also have with us today our new Title IX Coordinator and ADA Compliance Officer, Andrea Waters. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. Just a little background about me. 20 years to the month. I graduated from Suny Potsdam in August of '01, and I came back to Suny Potsdam in August of '21. So something told me that Suny Potsdam needed me to come back. So I'm here as our Title IX coordinator. I didn't leave the North Country after graduation. I was from Lewis County area and decided to stay here after
glad you came back. And we also have today our new Director of Financial Aid, Courtney Rust.
Hi, everybody. Like she said,
I know,
Courtney Rust.
kind of odd.
And I also am an alum of Suny Potsdam. I was a student worker in financial aid when I was attending here, moved into a counselor role, and then I went down the road to Suny Canton for about almost 5 years, where I was assistant director at the end there. And now I'm happy to be back and be director here and lead our amazing team that we already have into the spring semester in the new year. And hopefully we're going to hit the ground running, as you guys have been saying, and be off to a great start. So it's great to see you all today. Thank you so much.
Again, welcome back. Glad to have you all aboard. We have several other people who, because of conflicts with scheduling, weren't able to be here. So perhaps at another council meeting, we'll ask them to just pop in and say hello. So for the three of you, it's up to you whether you want to stay or you feel free to leave. We're not going to be insulted. You can go back to work if you want. Don't worry, it's like dirty dishes. It'll be there when you get there. Okay, so continuing on with my report. The Association of College Councils and Trustees, earlier this month, we had our annual meeting. And as has been the case, it was a virtual meeting rather than bringing people from all 62 campuses and the statewide range of geography. We met via Zoom. And at the very beginning of the meeting, there was a pre-recorded performance of one of the Crane ensembles. I apologize for not knowing the name of it. I didn't write it down. And it was one of two performances for the whole statewide audience. We had the one just before or right after the meeting started, and then there was one at the end right before adjournment. So once again, we're very proud that Suny Potsdam was highlighted. The two main speakers at the conference were Merrill Tisch, who is the chair of the big board of trustees, and also Chancellor Malatras. The chancellor actually, this is the second time he's visited our campus since he became chancellor. And I wasn't able to be here for that, but it's okay. The focus of it was on COVID precautions and how well we have been doing, as well as the Suny system, and especially the students. I just heard or saw a report that of the, and you can help me, is it 300,000 students system-wide?
Yeah, it's about
Somewhere in
Yeah,
that neighborhood?
Yeah, that's about right.
There were like 1,500 that weren't fully vaccinated system-wide. I think that's pretty amazing. And we salute the students and the faculty and the staff on this campus. We've been through it, and Alex, as you remember, in his role as captain in the National Guard, was the one who was running the facilities for vaccination over at Maxey Hall. And I know the students and the athletic department are delighted that once again the ice is down in Maxey. So, yes, and thanks to Eric, because he's been, is it the EERG?
Correct.
Okay. Don't ask me to tell you what it means. I know it's emergency something, response.
Emergency resource response.
There we go, EREG, whatever. Anyway, thanks to everybody for your cooperation. I know some people were displaced and discombobulated for a while, and you know, it takes a team, and we all know there's no I in team, so there we go. Since we last met, Dr. Linnell Woods, who was the interim dean of the School of Music, suddenly died. It was unfortunate. He actually missed a meeting, which was very unlike Linnell. And some people from Crane went to check on him and found that he was deceased. So it was untimely, unexpected, tragic, and a huge loss to the campus. We also lost someone, some of you may remember, Dr. Richard Del Giudice, longtime campus member, professor emeritus, Suny distinguished professor, really great guy. So if you would join me in a moment of silence, not just for those two people, but for those who are no longer with us, whether it's because of COVID or whatever it was, we remember them fondly. So just a moment of silence, please. Thank you. On a brighter note, this is Potsdam Appreciation Week. Colloquially known as PAW. Right, Eric? All right. Yesterday was the students that were honored and saluted. So let's give them, even though we weren't here yesterday, a round of applause for our students. And coincidentally, today is Faculty and Staff Appreciation Day. So we all appreciate you. So let's give those of us that aren't working for the college, let's give a round of applause to the faculty and staff. Thank you. I don't know, did anybody besides me have a chance to watch the memorial concert that Crane put on this week? Okay. It was live streamed from Crane, and it was, I'm always proud of Potsdam, and I'm always particularly proud of Crane, since I was a Craney at one point in my life. It was moving, marvelous. It was almost 2 hours long, including an intermission. Every single person who was performing that evening was either a current student or an alum. And that included just a wide array of music, everything from classical to, I believe there's one Broadway number. And at the end, the finality was the Crane Chorus and Orchestra that performed the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice, which you all have heard at previous commencements here on campus. It also, David Heiser, who couldn't be with us today, but he is the current interim dean of the Crane School. He stepped in when Linnell passed. So he gave some welcoming remarks, and there were a lot of remembrances of Linnell. It was interspersed with film clips, including a couple of Linnell singing, as well as directing and coaching and teaching. And Dean Michael Sitten, who's the immediate past dean, Dean Sitten came and gave some really nice remarks. And the last speaker before the finale was Dr. John Youngblood, who was a personal friend of Linnell's. And he gave some very, very moving remarks. But altogether, it was a wonderful tribute and a shining moment, I believe, for the college and for Crane. It was a sad occasion, but it was really well done. And since David isn't here, if someone would relay a message from me that it was a lot of work and it was greatly appreciated, and everything was COVID safe. The entire audience, masks are required indoors on campus, and everybody complied. And I was particularly taken with the skill of the stagehands, because this wasn't like a one setup and then, you know, the orchestra performs and then at night you go home. This was literally a different stage setup for every single number. Well, there were one or two ensembles who did two numbers, so they got a break, but the piece de resistance was the setup for the finale, which was the entire Crane chorus and the orchestra in front. And everybody, the Steinway grand piano must have been moved 5 or 6 times during the performance, which was actually one of the easier things to do because it's on rollers and you move it from this mark to that mark. But all of the technical work, the seats that were needed, as well as the music stands. And Alex knows, he's a musician as well. It's a lot of work, and it was flawless. So congratulations to the Crane School and everybody, including the people that put the program together. It was very well done. And I would, this isn't on the agenda, but I think that it would be appropriate for the council to do a resolution in memory of Dr. Woods, since we haven't met since then. And also perhaps a thank you to the Crane School for what they did. So.
I'd make the motion.
I will
Okay.
second.
Did you say that, Nick, or Alex?
Yeah, I will second.
Okay. Is there a second?
I made
Second.
the motion, he said.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I
And,
couldn't see you say it.
I know. If I could just add before we vote,
Yep.
I did attend Dr. Woods's concert and regrettably never knew the man, but if you went to that concert, by the end of the concert, even probably after the first song, you could see how many lives he's touched. And every word you said, June, you spot on with what the concert was, so happy to make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded that there would be a resolution from the council in memory of Dr. Woods, and also an appreciation resolution to the Crane School and everybody that was associated with that concert. Since we don't have a physical resolution, would you all allow me and Dr. Graham to come up with a resolution? You trust us? We can circulate it to you after it's done. Not necessarily for approval because it might take too long. All right, so that's what we're voting on, that you give us permission to do that on behalf of the entire council and make sure that the resolution is sent to Dr. Wood's family and also to Dr. Heiser and the Crane School. Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So no opposition, unanimously passed. Okay, that's the end of my report, unless I think of something else. I apologize, I'm not as organized as I normally am. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. John Graham, who has been now on the job, how long?
About 2 months?
Okay, just seems longer, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah, but as I said, John hit the ground running. He's been fabulous to work with. Is the presentation on the vision, is that on the website?
I believe that the vision is on the website, absolutely.
Okay.
It's there.
So you need to go, if you haven't seen it, This was what Dr. Graham presented to the campus at normally, which was like the opening of the semester. And if you haven't seen it, you need to see it. There's also that little, the one with you and the cheering at Maxie. I know that's on the website.
Oh, the video clip?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's thanks to Mindy Thompson and her team, but it's really nice, though.
it is.
I did everything they told me to do, and it worked out.
Is that on the website as well?
It is, it is.
Okay, so you need to do that because that kind of gives you a feel, if you will, for Dr. Graham. So Dr. Graham has been hard at work. I was like the old metaphor when something's really difficult. It's like trying to turn a battleship in a bathtub. And yes, and the bathtub has water. And it's a challenge. We all knew that. And Dr. Graham knew what he was stepping into and the challenges ahead, and has already presented a vision and a strategy to the campus. There have been a couple of open sessions, there have been Zoom meetings, and you've heard this before, but the campus totally needs to be involved to help us right the ship. And people are working, people are stepping up, some things are changing. Change can always be uncomfortable. Part of it's the fear of the unknown. But Dr. Graham has, I think, done a masterful job of getting people focused on where we are, where we want to go, and how we're going to get there. Is that a fair summary?
It's fair,
Okay.
indeed.
So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Graham.
Well, thank you so much. How's my audio? Can I be heard pretty well? Okay, good. So, June, let me just start by this. Thank you for your leadership to this beloved institution. Let me thank all the College Council members for what you do and how well you do it. Clearly, there are many other people to thank, June, so I created an abbreviated list that I must go through before I do the presentation.
Okay.
And the order is not necessarily in the order of importance, but it's the right thing to do. Let me start by talking about the people that work in the facilities and physical plant, because presentation is representation. And students and parents and grandparents and caregivers and loved ones are always concerned about the aesthetics of an institution, because it is there where they reach decisions and early conclusions about what's behind the hollow hulls of that institution and that infrastructure. So a big thanks to those men and women that are working on our grounds, that are keeping our buildings clean and safe and all those things. So that's a group that we certainly need to give some deference to. I also like to thank Tracy Harcourt, our public health lead person that keeps our campus safe with testing. Now, she doesn't do it alone. She has a team, but they do it exceptionally well. She sends emails all hours of the day, all hours of the night. She's working 7 days a week, it seems. But it is a team effort, and I just wanted her to be recognized, because if the campus is not healthy, then students will make decisions to come or not to come. And I think that we've done a really good job of compliance. Tracy reports to Eric to share, so like I said, it's a team. But I wanted to certainly recognize that. I also wanted to say thank you to the College Foundation Board and the Alumni Association, because these are two extraordinary bodies among many that bring about a richness to this institution that most institutions among the 13 sisters, and I call those the comprehensive colleges, do not necessarily have. So we have a very strong foundation and alumni association, and big thanks to Sal Kanier and his team for really consistently getting this institution out front, notwithstanding our challenges. They continue to thrive. And so I wanted to recognize them today for doing extraordinary work, consistently doing extraordinary work. Lastly, but not less important at all, is the faculty. Colleges and universities don't graduate. Students graduate. And the last time I checked, students are taught by faculty. It is the faculty that gives the institution its reputation. And so, we pay deference to our faculty for helping us get through this pandemic, for having the fortitude to deal with the challenges of COVID, having the endurance to deal with the complexities that this institution now faces, and having the stamina to soldier on in these very, very challenging times. But my job is really not to talk about the challenges as much as it is to talk about the promise of the institution. And it is there where I now draw your attention. Next slide, please. All right, so we've been sharing this thought about a 4-point plan. Admittedly, Patrick Quinn, who was here about 4 or 5 months before I got here, had already been working on an enrollment strategy. But he has thoughtfully and respectfully and humbly partnered with me on this vision to have a 4-point plan that now is a sort of an action plan. But we're working together. We're not working in bifurcation. Next slide, please. So here's what that 4-point plan looks like. I prefer to do easy to read things. I don't like things that are complicated, because if it looks complicated, guess what? It is. So North Country, we have to solidify our base. We have to know where we are, and we have to be extraordinarily effective in the North Country. But earlier when I articulated the North Country strategy, we may not have focused on the other regions that are also mission critical. So you can see those regions there. We're going to be paying a lot of attention to all those regions there. Central New York, Finger Lakes, the Capital Region. And we have staff members that are already there in those locations that are doing the work that is so important to our institution. October through December is the early decision period for students that want to make a choice about their college. My own daughter, as a paying tuition parent, I wanted to make sure that we made a decision between October and December so that I can get my finances in order whenever she was ready to go to school. And so I want other parents around the state and the country to have that same appreciation. And so we thought it would make sense to really try to get as many students as we possibly can to make an early decision about Potsdam. New York City, this is where the playground is. This is where everyone lives, so to speak, right? And we want to make sure that we really hit those 5 boroughs. Admittedly, I'm from New York City. I was less fortunate, I'm not from the North Country, so I apologize for that. But I will tell you that when I was 17 years old, I had one goal in mind, and that is to get out of New York City. I think you know where I was going there. I just told my brother when I was in high school, I said, Nate, it's too crowded here. There's too many buildings. I can't see. So my brother Nate was the first one in my family to go to college. He went to Ithaca College. And when I went to visit him, I said, Nate, I want to go to a college that has open space. So I'm saying that because I don't want anyone to think that people in the urban areas, that they're all in love with the concrete jungle. That's not true. There are some of us that want to see and live and thrive on the other side of those buildings. So that's the person that's leading this institution. Someone who is unafraid of the North Country. Someone who is unopposed to otherness. Someone who has values for those people who do not look like me. Bring back the Bears. We want to bring back individuals that have already invested time in us, that already believe in us. Prospective students is one thing, but getting the students that you already had is another. So that has to be a part of our 4-point strategy. So our methodology is really simple. We don't want to go back to somebody that had 45 credits because that would be an act of Congress, the House and the Senate. We're focused on students that have 100 credits at least, because 20 credits would be the so-called finish line. And so I'm working assiduously with our provost and our academic leadership team to see what degree can we land on. Will it be interdisciplinary studies? Will it be general studies? Liberal arts? What will it be? Because if somebody contacted me, I would want to know where I can get my degree and get it quickly. Now, of course, this is easier said than done, but all of us are taking a commitment to help this institution get from now to next. And so in order to do that, we have to do the ordinary things extraordinarily well. No one is asking us to be ordinary in higher education leadership, especially today. If you want to be ordinary, then you shouldn't be at Potsdam, because we need extraordinary people to do extraordinary things. International students. We haven't really been a real player in the formalization of this space, but we got a lot of international students. We may not have a lot of articulation agreements, although we do have some. So there are some undocumented students here in this country that are legally here. Their parents may have some political challenges with the federal government, but the students themselves do not. They are legal. And although they are not eligible for financial aid from the federal side, they are eligible for New York State aid. And so we would like to, as much as we possibly can, and thoughtfully do this, get and attract some students that might be interested in our academic offerings. We have really, really good programs, and we have to also be mindful of our borders, because sometimes students become a little concerned about borders. And so, again, we have to be almost like an octopus that has about 8 different things going on at one time, but they have to be well coordinated. And so that's pretty much in a nutshell where this 4-point strategy is. And quite frankly, as I mentioned, we already have staff that are already working in this space right now. Next slide, please. So Patrick, Quinn, and I last week took a little trip. We went to New York City to meet with Burl Jeffers. Burl didn't even know I took that picture, by the way. She was talking to Patrick, but I took the picture. She didn't know. But she was talking to Patrick and me about what is it that Potsdam can do in the city and what other campuses are doing. She's telling us that Geneseo is there, right? Stony Brook is there. What is Stony Brook doing there? They got enough students already. But my point is that she's sharing with us that the facilities that she is in, our 64 campuses are making appointments to be in that space to engage students, prospective students. So we need to be there. And I've said this before, it's a Chinese proverb, a tree drops nothing on those who are not there. If you're not there, there's no way a leaf can possibly hit you. So Beryl is giving us this orientation, and then she went on to share that Suny Canton is doing the bus trip November 14th. And you know I was just all too excited to hear that. So just yesterday, one of the College Foundation members, and I'll have to talk to Sal about this, sent me a little note and said, if Potsdam would like to have a bus for students to come up from the city, we will support it. So I'll talk to Sal more about that, and I'll let you all know what we're thinking. Now, it's going to take more than one bus, you know that. And I just want you all to know that the conversion on college students, you have to be in touch with 1,000 students to yield 100. A little repeat on that. You have to touch 1,000 students to net 100. So now we're talking about the customer service side of Potsdam, right? The Potsdam way, where you contact John Graham and say, John, I understand that you're a high school senior and you've applied to my institution. I'm in my freshman year now. I'm in my sophomore year now. I'm in grad school now. And tell me what your interests are, because I can tell you I love this institution. And I want you to be here with us to help us build this institution. And when you do come, bring a brick or a shovel, because we're trying to build something here. So, but we need to put that together. We need to have a strategy, a team of students that we already have, that already love us already, our current bears, to pick up the phone and contact students. And there's some things, June, we have to do the old-fashioned way. You know, I know technology's nice and it's slick and it's shiny and all that, but there's nothing better than talking to people and trying to encourage young students who are undecided about their life that this might be the place that they can go to learn. And so I've said this once before, and I truly mean this because it's indicative of my own life. If you really want to go far, hell, sometimes you have to actually go far. And so that's where we are. And that's what we're promising our students, that if you come here, you can survive and go anywhere and be successful, because Potsdam grads are everywhere. And that's what I've come to learn, and that's what I've come to know. Thank you. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share this slide. It's been shared before. This is a part of the team that we already have that's at college fairs. And again, this is Patrick's team, so I'm not taking credit for the work that's being done. We are a team, and as June mentioned, there's no I in team, but there is an I in win. So I will say this, we have 100 high school visits and 100 college fairs. That's what we're doing. But Patrick and I have agreed that we have to hit the ground running too. I cannot just sit around as a cheerleader and wait for the students to just arrive. I have to use my presence, my time, and my interest and committed interest of helping students make the decision about our institution. So I'm going to create a list of about 20 high schools, or 25 high schools to hit between now and next May for students to come to our beloved institution. Again, these colleagues will continue to do what they do. Don't stop. But Patrick and I and others, we also have to be present, because we have to move this institution to its next level of quality. And no matter what they say about our finances, we got to get students here. When a campus loses 100 students, it's nearly $1 million in revenue. And those who do the math on this thing, it can become really interesting. So we cannot afford to lose students. And so remember, one thing I didn't put in the 4-point plan is to recruit back the students that we already have. I guess it would be a 5-point plan. But my hope is that we're treating these students well and that they get a gainful experience so that they will return to our institution. Next slide, please. So on the left are these two dynamic young individuals. A. Philip Randolph High School, that's the high school I attended in New York City. I was in the first graduating class. When I went there, they only had 9th grade. So I was in the first graduating class, and it's ironic that the principal at the high school is a historian. So I took the yearbook that I graduated, and he made a copy of it, because that's the one year he didn't have. It was 19, whatever it was, I graduated. I'm a lot younger than I look. So these two young ladies, here's what I like about them. They are young, they have energy, they have stamina, they have endurance, and they are college advisors that actually work at the high school. They're employed to work at the high school, and they are doing recruitment. Now, if you look really closely, June, I don't know if you can see this, the Potsdam banner is up there.
Yep.
You see it?
Yep.
And I didn't give it to them. It was already there. So we have students already from my high school, and we have students that's actually going to be applying to Potsdam. And by the way, there are comments that are sometimes made, sometimes generously in an opposite direction. Do we want these kids coming from the inner city? Well, let me tell you something. This school, students are hungry. Every year they have 3 students that get accepted to Harvard, 2 that goes to Princeton. They are kicking butt. So this idea about, oh, these kids, no. Don't do the one size fit all. And just because we may look alike, don't mean we think alike. That's a mistake to make. African American people and people of color are not monolithic, and you must understand that. The next one in this picture is the Brooklyn Academy of Global Finance. What a name for a high school. My goodness. That young lady that popped in the picture is a freshman student, by the way. She popped in and said, hey, I want to be in the picture. So we're building relationships here, right? And so this high school is new. This is a new high school. And I talked to a number of students that's interested in the performing arts. And of course, I gave them our information, I gave them my card. And so we're trying to build relationships. And then Patrick, Quinn, and I made it down to Thurgood Marshall High School, which is only about 6 or 7 blocks away. Patrick, we walked there. It's about 7 blocks away. So here it is, 2 high schools that are thriving, that are right next to each other. So we hit both of those high schools, And we had very, very good experiences. And just in case you all know this, we are going to be looking for someone in New York City to be our recruiter. So those two young ladies on the left side, we asked them for a little bit of help. So when we post a position, we can get some people like them because they have the care gene. And that's what we're looking for. If you don't care, we're not interested, but we're looking for people that care. And people who are good, they always know each other. So we're going to try to flip our position description out to many people as possible. It'll be a fair process, but we need people that are good on delivery, and they're going to help us get there. Next slide, please. So more students. This is A. Philip Randolph High School and Thurgood Marshall High School on the right. And then we went to the Boys Club of New York. This is a program that's being run by a gentleman by the name of Antonio Aponte. And actually, he went to a boarding school. Patrick, did he go to school in New Hampshire, Rhode Island? Where did he go to school?
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. So here it is. We are trying to recruit students to come to Suny Potsdam. And the person who's leading it as the executive director is in the inner city. This is Spanish Harlem, by the way. And he's trying to get young men to go to school at boarding schools and prep schools. So see, again, it demystifies this notion that these inner city kids are just, lifeless. It's not true. These kids are responding to what the world has to offer them, and they're opening themselves up. Because I can speak from a personal standpoint. I grew up in an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment with 9 people, 4 people in 1 bedroom. So I was all too excited to leave. Next slide. So, it's no secret I love athletics. It's not a secret. This makes a difference for colleges, believe it or not. Students choose Duke University and Syracuse and all these other fancy institutions. Yeah, the academic programs are great, but they're also winning institutions. Potsdam, we were a winner, and we got to get back to that magic. But in order to win, you got to win in practice. You got to win in the classroom. You got to win in the community. You got to win in other places, and then you have to become competitive. And then you were actually winning on the ice, on the field, or wherever. So our athletic programs are very attractive. And admittedly, Patrick and I saw a couple of really tall guys walking around in the high schools there. And me, I rubbed a few elbows there. Next slide, please. Retention. Now, our efforts for recruitment is broad, right? It's North Country, it's undocumented, it's a little bit of everything, everybody. Todos el mundo, the whole world is what we're trying to attract. But there's a little concern about retention, and I know we have good retention strategies here. But we have a young man that works here that's doing good work, and what I like about him is that he keeps his head down and he works, and he doesn't have his hand out. He's constantly thinking about ways to innovate and be busy about Potsdam. Next slide, please. You've seen this person. I've only met him twice, actually, face to face. We've had a couple of meetings. But Clifton Harcum has been really helping us and giving us a lot of attention lately, especially with these activities that's happening in the Adirondacks. Quite frankly, the things that he's doing, I have never done, in terms of the hiking and things like that, because that's what inner city kids don't usually, we don't usually do that. But somehow, he's got kids doing a lot of interesting things. And so I wanted to shine some light on him the way I shine light on our facilities, right? And our faculty and Patrick, because I'm letting people know that this is not my show. This is the Potsdam show. And so to the extent that we can show the wholeness and the fullness and the breadth of our institution and our strength, this is what we're about. Next slide, please. Now, these are urban kids doing these things. And we are priding ourselves on not just checking a box for diversity. We're focusing on togetherness, June. Kind of like what you and I do, right? We get together. It's not about diversity. Oh, there's one there, there's 2 over there. No. We're not doing that. That's passé. We're focusing on togetherness because that's the Potsdam way. So these urban kids are doing things that they just would not even think about doing. And I think it's a wonderful intersection between the inner city and the North Country. I think it's a wonderful bridge, and that's what we're going to continue to build in that space. Next slide, please. So the College Foundation Board asked me on October 1st, what are the college's greatest needs? But I have the humanity to know it's never a good idea to ask for anything unless you've done your homework. It would be disrespectful for me to just throw out a number, give me X, when I haven't done my homework on the institution. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we began to take a look at is to do a very abbreviated SWOT analysis. Obviously, the list could be very long on any side, but I tried to identify the things that we thought would be most pertinent, especially to share. This information is all available to you. We have some strengths. The first Suny, right? Crane. Our campus dining is amazing. We have a good reputation. People know about us. And the campus is beautiful. So we got a lot of good assets, right? We have opportunities, we have some weaknesses there. We got a structural budget deficit that we have to deal with, and that's gonna not be easy, that's not gonna be easy to do, but we're working on it. And then you see this failing to innovate under the weaknesses, that's what we gotta do. And I think that failing to innovate really comes from people somehow becoming a little tired. But we all know, if you ask anybody, my wife years ago ran the New York City Marathon, something I wouldn't do. But I asked her, I said, what was it like? She says, well, things were fine the first 20 miles. But something about that last mile, my body began to break down. So my point to you colleagues is that the last mile is the longest. And that's what we got to deal with. And so my job is to inspire and bring hope, right? And promise that this institution can get to that last mile and we can get there and do it together. And guess what? We'll get there a lot quicker if we work together and stay on the same track. We know what the threats are. We have company. We have 13 comprehensive colleges and we have other SUNY campuses. I call them the 13 sisters. So our 12 sisters now are also competing for the same students that we are. And so SUNY writ large is turning down 40,000 students every year. We need to compete for those students, but we gotta be everywhere, like the tree leaves that are falling this time of year. We have to be present. And so we're gonna continue to work on this SWOT analysis so that we can get ourselves to the next level. Thank you. Next slide, please. So, the reason why I did not ask the foundation board for any money is because we need to do this. We need to do an academic review and realignment. I can't go and ask somebody, I wouldn't ask an individual for money unless we did an academic realignment to show what are we doing? How are we spending our money right now? Next slide, please. So this is what I had shared with Blair Madore, who's our faculty senate chair. This now should be in the possession of our deans and our department chairs, because I asked them to go through a process that is relatively easy. We're trying to put together a roadmap to understand our low enrollment courses, the ones that are moderately enrolled, so forth and so on. And we're asking them to look back 3 to 5 years, and we want to look at the enrollment simultaneously. And so this is a consultative process. We're not asking anybody to defend anything. We're just simply doing a lipid panel. That's all we're doing. Just trying to figure out what's our baseline and to what extent are we healthy or unhealthy, and then we will make some decisions on what the diagnosis should be. But I don't know what the diagnosis is going to be because we haven't gone through the process yet. So the next phase is a more fleshed out document from November 10th to November 30th. So they have time to work on that. And they shouldn't feel under duress. Because, like I said, if it's long, it's wrong. The December 20th, the penultimate draft. As we get a little closer, the faculty will begin, and deans and chairs will begin to look at what they put together, and they will put it in a cogent way and send it to the provost, who will then sharpen the needle really well for me to take a look at. And then, when we get to the spring semester, it's my understanding that there's not a faculty senate meeting in January, so it's going to be early February, and then that's when I'll share the findings with the campus community, college council included, and they'll set up recommendations and actions will be presented at that time. but it will be collaborative, and I'll be showing, giving a little bit of updates to our, to Blair Madore and the Faculty Senate, but I won't be giving decision updates. I'll be giving informational updates. I want to be very clear about that. Not decision updates, but information updates on where we are. Next slide, please. So, October 25th and 26th, we had a delegation from Suny come here to visit with us. They did an academic review. It's called academic review because we were visited by the provost's office. And this is what they do. They know that our campus is in a little bit of distress. And so they, at my encouragement, visited us. And these are the constituent groups with whom they met. And they are going to put together a report. And I asked that it not be long, because if I got to read page 10 to figure out what I should have got on page 3, you know, I'm not interested in that. So I've asked them to put together a nice, concise report, because this external review is going to be really important, because we're not the only campus that's going through a little financial stress. So right now, our campus is going to be used sort of almost like the pilot. Well, don't take me on a flight if you're not going to help me land. So there, I have my own motivation behind this academic review, by the way. Next slide, please. So, with the leadership of Betty and our colleagues here, Gordon Plake and Julie Dole, they're doing great work. Middle States team is going to be here on November 19th, virtually. Sorry, they're going to be visiting with us virtually. We're going up for full accreditation next April, so we're a little bit ahead. Julie Dole and Gordon have been working like I don't know what to get us ready. And I'm telling you, they are two individuals that we need to give a lot of credit to, because they're burning the candle for us right about now. Now, one of the things that's required in that Middle States report is the completion of our strategic plan. And so Betty Bergeron, our provost, was the only person around the table from when it started a couple of years ago. And so we were able to close it out. And I want to give a shout out to Nasli Kirchian for being our Sherpa, for kind of pulling all that information together. And, but I got to tell you, you know, the teamwork makes the dream work. And so we got a completed strategic plan. Now, admittedly, it's going to be socialized. We've got to socialize things around here. That's what higher education does. So we're doing that. But the plan itself has been completed. And so that's a check box. So now we can go into Middle States without having that over our head that it was undone. Next slide, please. So, I served as a dean in my time. And one of the things when I was a dean, I had so many problems in my college, my school, I couldn't run the institution. I couldn't advise the president because I had too many of my own issues. And so, when I had to deal with the faculty chairs and faculty workloads and faculty teaching on other campuses and all the other stuff that they were doing, I had to focus only on my school and not try to run the college. So we're asking our deans to be part of what we're calling the change makers and innovators. And that's what they're doing. So our 3 deans are taking the lead, including Eric, to have a round of listening sessions on the campus to talk to various constituent groups about what amazing ideas that they may have that could help us advance our institution. And I have a little pet peeve about this, June. I'm not a fan of asking for money. I'm a fan of asking for ideas, because ideas attract money. And so we're hoping that the listening sessions will not be about how much is this going to cost. Because if you lead with that, then you're already setting yourself up for failure, because there's no innovation there. Ideas don't cost money. Ideas attract money. So we're looking for efficiencies in what we're doing as an institution. That's what we're trying to get to. Diane? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Graham. So I think you have a little sense of everything that's going on behind the curtain to a certain extent, but yet has the entire campus actively engaged and involved. Are there any questions, comments?
Hey, June, I wanted to just share this other little piece here. Is it there? It's real short. Let me see. Is it going to come up? It's a Suny Potsdam factoid. I don't know if it's if it comes up or not. It looks like it's.
Relax, Diane.
No,
That's all right.
it's not mission critical, but I just thought it would be good to share because I wanted to get some of the council members' feedback on, so that way they can see us in a sort of a big picture.
Sorry, I go on.
I was told that when it circles like that, it's thinking, right?
Right.
Is it the fast facts?
Yes.
We have a copy, well,
Yeah, oh,
in-person
good. So,
people.
right, thank you for bringing that up. So, yeah, it's the fast facts. It's in your folders. And I think that,
Just beyond the slideshow.
yeah, it was.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's
Page
just that.
17.
Yep.
We're just trying to put just about as many thoughtful pieces of information together to share with mom and dad, grandparents, loved ones, caregivers, even prospective students about why would I come to school here? And so these things give a little bit of some of the most impressionable things about our institution, and we thought it would be nice to share those things with folks. So it's really not so much of a presentation; it's more about information to share. And I thought that those fast facts would be really good because. You know, we're just an amazing institution. Oh, looks like they're getting to it. So June, if they show it now, it will be only for those who are not in the room. I guess they can
Right.
take a peek at it.
If you look at the bottom right on that page, you'll see the little, it's not really a slogan, but it's something that Dr. Graham talks about,
Yeah.
kind of just a visual representation. And as someone who went to grammar and middle school in Queens and graduated from high school on Long Island and came to Potsdam, and part of it was the Crane School of Music, but the real reason that I came was it was the farthest I could get away from home and still take advantage of my Regents scholarship.
Oh, wow.
So I literally came far. Whether I went far is up for discussion. Well,
Oh, they found it?
I got it, hold on 1 second.
And it's very brief. Thank you for pointing it out. It's very brief, but, and again, I would like for Mindy's, team to take a look at it, but it's just something that we wanted to have to brag about our institution. And so, people should know that we're one of 50, and all those little factoids I thought was very helpful for us. And then you can go to the other one, Diane. Thank you so much.
there.
Yep, those are some of the Potsdam facts. And it's really good. Like some parents like myself and others, they want to just see something like really quick. And so we want to have as many assets as we possibly can. So June, that officially ends my presentation.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Diane.
This is also really good information for council members, because, you're in the community and somebody says, well, how many people are there at Potsdam now?
That is really good.
Oh, no, yeah, so we're gonna take that with us. Molly was nice because she opened the binder. I don't have patience. That's why I'm not a doctor. No, sorry. Sorry about that. Is there any discussion? Alex?
I just had a question on the 4-point plan. Number 3, you hit on, there's the asterisk there about the students with 100 credits or more. Is number 3 more about, being able to quickly get someone their degree through Potsdam, as opposed to getting people back to Potsdam who maybe were here for a semester or two? Can you just explain
I
that?
caught the second part of what you said. Tell me again, I wasn't able to make out everything you said.
Yeah,
I know it's
so-
number 3, I got that part.
Yep. So it says that there's the asterisk that says it's 100 credits.
Right.
So is number 3 specifically about getting people back here to get a degree as quickly as possible, to get them that last 20 to get to the bachelor's?
Yeah,
And
yep.
you're
It's-
focusing
Yeah.
like right on that, like straight beeline on that, as opposed to bringing people back who are, maybe a semester or 2 under their belt?
Oh, we want both.
Okay.
But here's the thing. What we're trying to do, thank you for the question. We want to get people to the finish line quicker. And quite frankly, if you got 3 years to go, it's a 3-year financial investment. But if you have 100 credits and you get a postcard or a note from us that says, Dear John, according to our records, you have 110, here are the classes that you're going to need to finish. in the same communication. Here are the classes that you're gonna need, and these classes are available online or whatever the case may be. We mustn't assume that everybody wants to come back to school here and be in a residence hall and do their life all over again. They wanna close out wherever they're doing and get a promotion. They could be working in a forklift, they could be doing anything. They just wanted to get the degree in hand. So we're focused on 100 credits because that's a little bit easier for us to do. If we go back to 30 credits, I mean, that's how we'll get distracted, and we'll be like that little hourglass thing, like just, we won't get anything done.
Perfect
So I'm
analogy.
interested in getting things done, yeah. So 100 credits, if we can start there and be successful at it, then we can go back a little further.
Great, thank you.
So is it fair to say part of that is low-hanging fruit?
Strawberries, correct.
Yeah, you don't need a 16-foot extension ladder?
Exactly.
Okay. Any other questions? Alex, Jeff, I don't want to ignore you guys, or Alex. Harold? No? Okay. So that's the end of the president's report. Thank you for that, Dr. Graham.
You're welcome.
That was, let's say, more information than we've had in some time. I think we agree with that. Okay. Are Gordon and Julie going to?
Gordon is finishing a class, so
Okay.
as soon as he's finished, they'll be up.
All right, so we'll move
Yes.
on to the reports, and then we'll suspend what we're doing when they get here. Okay? I just wasn't sure. Okay, so now the part of our meeting where we hear from constituency groups, starting with our biggest constituency group, our students. So Nick, as chairman of the SGA, president of the SGA, excuse me, I just demoted you. How about your report? What's going on with the students?
Yeah, the students are really excited to be back and be in person, get to attend events, concerts, games, all kinds of programming. And students are happy to see that and be in classes, meet with their friends, have interactions. There was 2 resolutions that came through, and those are listed, and I can go into more detail or send those if you guys would like. But we did have a change of 2 e-board members from the last time the council met, so we are adding our new comptroller and our vice president, Kylie. So we're very excited to have them. I have met with Dr. Graham and Nasli this semester about any concerns that have come up, and they've been really great about addressing them and getting things resolved as quickly as they can. So we, the students, definitely commend them on those issues. So, yeah, that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any.
Questions, comments? We thank you for stepping up and being the SGA. Now, the 2 officers that you mentioned, didn't someone move up, and so then it was kind of?
Yes, our treasurer from the spring had resigned over the summer, so Andrew, who was our comptroller, became our treasurer, and so then we brought in a new comptroller, as well as the vice president was the president pro temp of our assembly, and as the vice president resigned this semester, she stepped into that role as well.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't want people to get the impression that people were fleeing.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Blair, are you with us?
Blair's gonna be here in about 7 minutes. He's finishing his class.
His
and
class.
He'll actually come in person.
Yeah, we have to work around the classes, because that's what it's all about. Okay. Betty Bergeron, the provost, it's time for your report. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's like a congressional hearing. So where's your,
Where's all the
is
cameras?
is Alan your lawyer?
Absolutely, 100%. So I would be glad to take any questions. I know that your time is very precious, and there are things that need to be addressed through the Middle States presentation, et cetera. I do want to let you know that there will be very good news very soon about the Crane Dean. That search has wrapped up successfully. Just want to make sure we go through the right protocols for notifying the campus. But you should be hearing something very soon about the new Crane Dean. So, and a huge shout out and thank you to Dr. Dave Heiser and Dr. Chuck Guy, who stepped in to the leadership roles in the Crane School after the very, very tragic passing of Linnell Woods. I mean, it was a difficult time for them personally, but then to be able to step forward into those leadership roles during that difficult time for them, it just is truly appreciated. My academic report does have updates, some new programs, those kinds of things in there, so if you have questions about any of those. I do want to mention specifically 3 unique ones. The BFA in Art Education. We had for some time a relationship with SLU. SLU got out of the teacher ed business, so we have taken that on entirely on this campus. So really excited we were able to launch that this fall. BS in Computer Science Education, we're the first in Suny to have that approved, and a really innovative collaboration between Arts and Sciences, the Computer Science Department, and School of Ed. So really excited about taking the lead in Suny for that. And then also a really interesting collaboration among our STEM disciplines led to the BS in Environmental Science. So that is a great collaboration as well. So we're launching that too. So a lot of activity within our schools, a lot of creative work on behalf of the faculty. We're also in the process of moving a number of programs online, starting with graduate level programs. The most recent one to go online is the MSED in Literacy, but also working on the Ed Tech degrees at the master's level as well. So a lot going on within academic affairs as always. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Questions, comments?
I have a quick question.
Okay.
So you said that, I remember when we saw the news articles and whatnot, SLU did get out of the master's ed business. Do we have any program with SLU so that we could actually steal whoever, was an undergrad there that wants to get their master's?
That already happened.
Oh, okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yep, that was a few years back, but yes, that already happened.
Great.
We stole away, absolutely. Yep.
Other questions? I have a question. In Dr. Graham's slideshow this morning, and I think there's a mention in your report about the academic realignment. I'm just curious to know what the process is, where it is, and what, I don't want to say assignments, I guess we say charge, was given to the deans and the chairs in regard to this?
So you saw the timeline
Yep.
that's presented, so we're working within that particular timeline. We're looking at both the data that we can get from HR and from Judy's office. So HR has provided data in terms of faculty salaries. And then the institutional effectiveness, Judy Singh's office is in the process of providing data that is majors level data over the last 5 years. We know the baseline, how many numbers in majors over time, but I asked her to look at that and provide us with information related to, for example, gender diversity, ethnic diversity, students who are in programs that are represented through EOP and bridges, special programs, that kind of thing, because all of that is important in getting the bigger picture. We also have access to the regular departmental level reports that come out every semester from Judy's office that look at department level that's not broken down into major. That's why I needed Judy to provide the data for majors. So we're in the process of compiling all of that so it makes sense, so it's not just one huge giant spreadsheet. So we're breaking that down by departments and programs, providing that to the deans who are sharing it with the chairs. In the meantime, the department chairs right now are working on a more reflective and narrative piece to share with their deans, because academic programs aren't just numbers. There's a lot behind the alignment to mission, the job market demand, creativity, scholarship, innovation, service, all of that can't be reflected in just a static number. So the department chairs are working with their deans right now on that reflective piece, and as soon as we have the information from IE, so it's compiled in a manner that makes sense for departments to look at that, they will reflect on that as well.
Thank you. I was just interested to know, the timeline is pretty compressed.
It is.
So I was just wondering about the burden, if you will, on the deans and the department chairs in providing that information.
So the data itself is pre-populated and provided to the departments. We didn't expect them to go
Right.
digging around through HR data or IE data that's provided to them.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Other questions, comments? Not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And perfect timing. Hi. Yeah, we could, there's another chair
Yeah, I
right
can push
there.
it.
Okay.
This is to accommodate those who are attending virtually, not just our members, but the public. Thank you. So now we are going to suspend our committee reports. You okay for a while, Blair? And for those of you who either don't know or don't remember, joining us now are Dr. Gordon Plague and Dr. Julie Dole, who are the magic workers behind the scenes preparing for our Middle States accreditation, which you may remember is extremely important, not just for the fact that there's a lot of financial benefits to doing it and doing it well. And it's been a while since we've heard from our two co-chairs of the working group committee magicians. I want to remind the council, I believe it was last week, I sent you all an email that is part of the virtual Middle States. I don't remember the date, November 16th or something? Yeah?
We'll talk more.
Oh, okay, good. But there's a 15-minute time scheduled for the college council. And if it's possible, last time we had something, Steve also joined me virtually on that. So I would strongly encourage you, if you're available, it's only 15 minutes, folks. Okay, so Gordon and Julie, take it away.
All right. Should we just say,
No, Diane's running the slides.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll give you whatever you want.
All right.
Okay, Gordon, I might need to talk into the mic.
Okay. So we are the co-chairs of the Middle States Self-Study Reaccreditation Team. So and Middle States is our accrediting agency. So next slide, Diane. So what we're going to do today is tell you a little bit about the process of what we've been doing over the past 2 years and what we will be doing over the next 4 or 5 months, and how you guys can be involved in this as well. We will also talk about the report itself and where it stands and what our campus priorities are, which form the basis of our report and structure our report. And we'll also talk about the final report, which will be making its debut to Middle States in February of 2022. And we will then take questions and comments from you all. Next. So, like June was saying, why is accreditation important? So accreditation assures students and their parents that students can have certain expectations when they go off to college. So they're assured that there are minimum expectations with regard to general education, that there's going to be enough depth in various majors that are offered so that the education that students receive is valid from that perspective, that the university is going to be assessing student learning outcomes, that there are enough resources and funding to support the in-class experience as well as the out-of-class experience. And
Another important aspect is so students can transfer so that their degrees are acknowledged. So if a student wants to go to medical school or law school or graduate school or be employed by someone who thinks that it's important to have a degree from an accredited university, it gives future employers and schools assurance that the degree is legitimate. And finally, and like June was mentioning, our students cannot get federal financial aid if we are unaccredited. And currently, about 75% of our students receive federal financial aid. So if it's not an option for students to get financial aid, we're going to ask Dr. Graham to close the doors and lock them, because the university cannot stay open if we are unaccredited. So it is of the utmost importance that we are an accredited university. Next slide, please, Diane. So a little bit about our process and where we've been so far up to this point, and many of you guys have seen this slide. So the process began about a little over 2 years ago, fall 2019. Julie and I first met and started the initial process of learning about Middle States. Neither of us had any experience with accreditation. And then I was thinking about this on my way over 2 years ago this weekend, the last weekend in October. Julie, Betty, and I went down to Philadelphia and participated in the three-day Self-Study Institute at Middle States. So we began the indoctrination of learning all of the ins and outs of how to do this process. And the process, again, in a nutshell, is we need to do a self-study of our university. We need to look at all aspects of the university, and it's an evidence-based assessment. What is the evidence that we do these things? So it's of the utmost importance that we have evidence for this process. Then in spring 2020, we brought together the steering committee, which currently numbers, I believe, 13 or 14 people. So that number has grown slowly, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is. But 13 people are on the steering committee. And at that time, and Julie will talk more about this, we identified our campus priorities that were going to be the priorities for our self-study. Then over the summer, it's actually not listed on here, but on the summer, we wrote the design document. So that was the roadmap for how we were going to do this self-study, so that we could follow this roadmap. And then in the fall, 1 year ago, we started that self-study. Working groups were convened, and we'll show those working groups and the people that populated those working groups. But they did the self-study based around the campus priorities. And then also, like June had mentioned, last October, a little over a year ago, Dr. Paul Starkey, who is our Middle States Vice President Liaison, visited campus virtually, spent a day here commenting on our self-study. Stephen met with him, the two of you met with him then. And then the working groups were working, like I mentioned. And then in spring 2021, they submitted their reports. The working group submitted their reports. And we started the process of reviewing those reports, and then also in spring, Emily Williams, who we'll talk more about, she is our evaluation team chair, our external evaluation team chair, was named as the chair in the spring. And then this summer, Julie and I and our writer, Carrie Bates, Carrie started writing, Julie and I started doing a gap analysis, seeing what were the missing holes that we had, what do we need, what other additional evidence do we need to collect to make sure we meet these standards. And we began drafting the report. So we are in the process, and I want to emphasize that the reports are still in the draft phase, and will be in the draft phase until February 21st, 2022. We have the date on our calendars. That's when the final report will go. So what are we doing this fall? So we are continuing to draft those, or review those drafts. A couple weeks ago, they started making their entrance into the world, and President's Cabinet and Provost Cabinet have read the reports, and we're getting comments back, and Julie and I are going through and amending those reports. And here is the date. November 19th is when Dr. Williams will visit again. And we will ask you guys if there's anybody that could meet with her. And we'd like to leave before the end of the day with names of people so we can get you. We don't have a huge amount of time to go back and forth. So if you can, take a look at your calendars, hopefully, and see if you might have a little bit of time between 1 and 1:15 on the 19th for a Zoom call. Then in January, next week, the report is going to go live to campus. So the campus at large has not seen it. It's not available quite yet, but it will be next week. And then ultimately in January, we're going to continue to revise the drafts of the report, stitching up any open holes that we have. And ultimately in January, we will send the penultimate copy out to campus. Like I said, February 21st is the drop dead date. That's when it goes to Middle States. We upload all of our evidence to Middle States as well. The external review team will then have 6 weeks to review it, and they will be visiting campus virtually. We just got word that the visit in April, between April 3rd and April 6th, is when they will be here visiting campus virtually, will occur virtually. And in the interim, we will be preparing campus for the evaluation team visit to make sure we are all ready as a campus for that visit. All right, next slide, please, Ben.
I'm shorter than you are. Hopefully this will be good. Moving in a little bit to what our findings have been and where we're headed with all of this. So we wanted to start by reminding everybody that we had the option to either do a standards-based approach or a priorities-based approach to how we designed our document. We decided way back in fall 2019 that the priorities-based approach would be the better method for our campus, that it would help us to avoid just going through the motion of checking the boxes and saying, yes, we do this, no, we don't. We really wanted to focus in on what we felt were the priorities. And so in spring 2020, we put a survey out to the campus so that we could have large-scale feedback on what we were thinking for priorities, and ultimately settled on strategic enrollment management, inclusive excellence, strategic decision-making, and creativity as our priorities. However, even though we are doing the priorities, we still have to make sure that we meet all of those standards and that all the check boxes are still checked. And so a lot of the work that's been done over the last year, our working groups really focused heavily on the priorities. And then as Gordon said, over this summer, he and I stepped back and we attacked this thing from the standards view to make sure that we were checking all of those boxes. And in total, there are 7 standards, all of which have many sub-criteria, and just making sure that we have the evidence that supports all of them. As we go into the final report, it's going to consist of several sections, an executive summary just outlining and introducing what we found, a reader's guide. This is primarily because we've taken the priorities-based approach, and reviewers typically are used to seeing standards-based reports, and we want to make sure that if they're looking for a particular standard, that they know where to go and find them. So it's a guide to going through our document. We'll have an introduction. We'll be able to have a section where we can talk about the impact of the pandemic and how that's affected our institution. And then the bulk of the report, we anticipate probably 80% of it will be the priorities-based chapters, and that's what we're focusing on here today. Current drafts are not yet on the website, but like Gordon said, they will be next week. And then obviously a final conclusion. So we don't have the time, like I said, it's, the priorities chapters are about 80%, so 75 to 80 pages worth of text right now. So we don't have the time to go into everything in detail, but we want to give you some highlights of what those chapters have looked at, what's been covered, and what are some of the main recommendations that are coming from there. So to begin with, we'll look at the Strategic Enrollment Management section. This was co-chaired initially by Chad Graham from the School of Education and Professional Studies, and also Heather Terrell, who worked in our One-Stop. Heather left the college last spring, and so Terry Francis from the admissions office joined Chad as the co-chair, and you can see the rest of the working group members there. Their chapter, as you would expect, focused on recruitment and retention. And you'll see as we go through this, sometimes the chapters are aligned more by standards, some are aligned more with major elements. For recruitment, we really ran through a ton of information. We reviewed the admissions practices for undergraduate and graduate admissions to include transfer and special admissions processes, as well as looking at Watertown and Riverview campuses. We looked at financial aid, focusing on helping students to understand funding sources and options, the value that they receive for the cost of attendance at Potsdam, and methods to help students to make informed decisions about incurring debt and scholarship information. For retention, we looked at retention, transfer, and graduation rates, general retention efforts of the campus, additional financial support that the campus provides to students, so not just as they're coming as new incoming students, but what scholarship opportunities and additional fundings exist for them as returning students, and other student life type information. This all aligns with 3 of the standards, so Standard 2, Ethics and Integrity, the support of the student experience, which is Standard 4, and Standard 5, Educational Effectiveness and Assessment. The working group brought forward 2 major recommendations from this, and I must do a quick aside on this. First, the recommendations were brought to the campus at the end of the spring semester so that we could get general feedback from campus constituents. Each members of the campus were able to weigh in on a scale from 0 to 10, how important were these. They did not have to cross-reference them or rank them. They could say all of them were a 10 if they wanted to. So all of the recommendations that we have were a 6.5 or higher on a 10-point scale. The other thing that I'll note, especially this applies to strategic enrollment management, is that a lot has happened on our campus since the working groups submitted their reports last spring, and right now Dr. Graham and Patrick Quinn have been doing so much work in strategic enrollment management, and we are working incredibly hard to get all of that captured into the report, because we want that to be reflected when we send this to Middle States. And so we're still in that process of trying to get the live information as it comes to us. So the first recommendation, though, for strategic enrollment management was that the college continues to finalize the strategic enrollment management plan, incorporating the 4-point plan identified by Dr. Graham. And they wanted to include in this the funding allocation model for recruitment tools and initiatives that are needed to drive the plan are included in this work, to include areas of marketing and scholarship leveraging. So really wanting to make sure we have so much great energy around strategic enrollment management right now, but that we have a plan that can extend and last beyond this moment right now. The second recommendation that they have is for developing an institutional process to regularly monitor retention, graduation, and placement rates, with the goal of continually working to identify opportunities for improving student success. We have a lot of areas that are looking at this. I don't want to present this as if nobody on campus is looking at these rates. But for example, in fall 2019, the college did a retention summit that really brought awareness to retention issues that were happening on campus and got the college having a wider dialogue of what could be happening to help students remain at Potsdam, be able to graduate and get placement at the end. And we think that there would be benefits to continuing that on a wide scale level.
The second priority and second working group is the Inclusive Excellence Working Group, and this has obvious relationship to strategic enrollment management and how we do. So basically, they took a broad definition of inclusivity and diversity on our campus. So, and the co-chairs of this group Tammy Snell is one of the co-chairs of this working group, and the other one we've also, similar to the last one, Lennell Woods, our late dean of Crane, was the co-chair, and Jeremy von Blamenstein has stepped in to replace Lennell on the working group at this point, and we had 8 different working group members that did their investigation of this. So again, this group took a broad definition of diversity, looking at ethnic diversity, economic diversity, non-traditional students, wanting to know asking how do we do various things on our campus from the perspective of equity and diversity. And so the major elements of this chapter, like I said, overlapped a fair bit with strategic enrollment management from that DEI perspective, but in particular, standard 2, so ethics and diversity, so looking at things like conflicts of interest, grievance policies, things like that. The design and the delivery of the student learning experience, so how are things in the classroom from a diversity perspective. Standard 4, the support of the student learning experience, so outside of the classroom, how do we do supporting students from diverse backgrounds with diverse experiences? And then Standard 5, they also weighed in on that and took some of the criteria of Standard 5, educational effectiveness assessment, so assessing how well we do in the classroom. And so in the 3 recommendations that they've made for moving forward is, the first one is that DEI initiatives need to be a campus priority for funding. That if diversity and equity and inclusion is an important thing on our campus, if it's an important strategic aspect of our campus, we have to fund it. And so that was the number one finding that they had, the number one recommendation that they made. Secondly, and related to this really, is that they also recommended that we must enhance our efforts to recruit and retain diverse faculty and staff, and that we must set up benchmarks, that there must be defined goals, and we must assess those goals with those benchmarks. We can't just simply say we want to hire more faculty and staff from diverse backgrounds. We need to come up with a number, and what is that number, and how are we going to measure if we are approaching that number? And then third recommendation, they recommended that the SUNY Potsdam community use the campus climate survey data to improve our response to and prevention of violence on campus while continuing to study the issue. So that was the third thing that they recommended. Oh, sorry.
All right, on to number 3. I don't know why I couldn't figure out how to move that before. So on to our third priority, which is strategic decision making. This was co-chaired by Tanya Hewitt, a faculty member in our human performance major. I always get that department wrong, so my apologies. Dr. Grant could probably help me with it. Thank you. I have to call it the major formerly known as community health. I cannot get it. So also Sean Partridge, who is our director of the Student Success Center. And again, you can see the working group members there. So for strategic decision making, this was a hefty chapter with a lot of different elements in it. So in this chapter, we look at the mission, strategic planning, institutional, and individual goals. So for strategic planning, we're looking mostly at the strategic planning roadmap. The institutional goals we defined as the division level goals. So for example, academic affairs, we referred to the strategic enrollment management plan. And then the individual units are the department level goals. All of our academic units and administrative units all have an assessment plan and mission and goals with them as well. We also looked at budget and resource allocation and periodic assessments. I did purposefully just skip over governance, leadership, and administration because while that section is going to live in the written document under strategic decision making, a separate group actually did the quote-unquote investigation for governance, leadership, and administration. It was too much to put onto one working group, and so Gordon and I actually co-chaired a collection of faculty and staff members who helped us to take a look at that, and that is the only element of this report that was really done from a standards perspective. This is standards in the Middle States information, and so we really approach that from a standards view. So for the periodic assessments, one of the things I want to say about that, if you can, thanks, just reference back to the Middle States standards for a second, because this is probably the most substantial change that Middle States made from the last time we were reaccredited. The last time there was one standard that dealt with assessment, and it was just kind of sprinkled in there a little bit. Now it is a direct focus of the self-study process. And every single one of these standards, the very last criteria is how do you periodically assess this area? So how do you periodically assess your mission and goals, your ethics and integrity, so on and so forth. So that's what's being covered in that periodic assessment section. So our recommendations and opportunities for improvement and innovation for this section. Part of the reason I just spent a little bit of time on the periodic assessments is that this is an area that we need some improvement on in campus. Again, it is new in the Middle States standards, but we need to be making sure that we are calendaring in this work with the rest of the assessment that's happening on campus. We have great assessment that is happening, just not necessarily directly tied to the standards. And so Gordon and I are working on making a recommendation, most likely a 4 to 5 year cycle, where this will be incorporated into the work that we do as a campus to make sure that moving forward we actually are confidently meeting those areas. The second recommendation that we have is that each vice president reporting line, and we know that we've missed some here, but we've given some examples, have a strategic plan with formalized timelines for regular review and revision. Some are doing very, very well on this. I'll highlight academic affairs, very much in line with our strategic planning roadmap, assessed annually, and lots of great work on here. And others just need some development in there. With these areas, having the focus on incorporating them to the current campus goals, the individual unit goals. So we want them to be able to span both above and below them. And then last thing, being tied to resource allocation. We know that that's a difficult part and moment that we're having on this campus of allocating resources, but we need to be making sure that our strategic plans are remaining a focal point for that allocation.
Finally, the fourth self-study report and fourth campus priority is creativity. And this was co-chaired by Heather Beauchamp, who is a professor in the psychology department, and Sherry Paradis, who is in college advancement. And their working group members are listed there. And so they took a broad definition of creativity as well. I think often, when you think of SUNY Potsdam, I think many people do think of creativity. They think of the Crane School of Music and the new Performing Arts Center and all the things that happen there. But really, creativity is any scholarly work that is done by faculty members and students across campus, generating new knowledge and new performances in whatever realm they are in. And so they took a similarly broad approach to their self-study, and they looked at what we do and how well we use creativity in the classroom and out of the classroom, as well as how well do we use our facilities, our location? Are we creative in what we have, in our resources, in our resource use? And so their standard and the questions that they addressed and the information that they collected hit a range of different, 5 of the 7 different standards you can see there dipped into creativity. And so the 3 opportunities for improvement and innovation that the creativity group came up with is number 1, we recommend that faculty be encouraged to consider creativity in their course development and assessment. Become more intentional about our creativity and build it in across campus and across academic units so that we lean into creativity and being a creative campus and having that be the niche that we fill, the role that we fill within SUNY. The second recommendation is that faculty and staff set aside time for creativity. So related to point number 1, to regenerate and care for their mental and professional well-being, and so that we continue to be a creative campus and have creative faculty and staff. And then finally, their third recommendation was we recommend a comprehensive systematic processes that encourage and provide opportunities to share faculty and staff successes. And that the main webpage be redesigned to include these faculty, staff, and student successes, which potentially will have impacts on our strategic enrollment management, attracting prospective students, and also enhancing faculty staff morale. So those were the 3 recommendations that they made there. So finally, that is the final slide that we have, and we would welcome any questions that you guys have. Like we said, these reports will be going live next week, so we will welcome we welcome you guys to read these reports and give us comments on these reports to fill in holes. But in the meantime, we welcome any questions or comments that you have right now. And thank you.
Gordon and Julie. Can the council be notified when those go live?
Absolutely.
Because as hard as we try, at least I'm not on there every day. So thank you.
If it would work, can we email you and then have you share it with the rest of the
You
council?
could, or else email Diane, and
Okay.
then she can just send it out.
Perfect.
It's from me, but Diane's doing the work, so. Before we get into the questions and stuff, and at the beginning of the meeting today, we noted that this is PAW week, and that today is Faculty and Staff Appreciation Day. And we expressed our appreciation, but since we have 3 faculty members here right now, let's give them a round of applause as well.
So I'll start the questions off. So for the last 2 years, what do you do in your spare time?
Manage pandemic response.
Oh, there you, yes, Julie was intimately involved in that as well. Okay, so assuming we get the pandemic under control at some point, and Middle States is done, you're going to have a whole lot of time. No, but we really appreciate that. So questions, comments, Harold, Jeff? I don't want to forget you guys.
It seems very, very comprehensive, what's been going on. I didn't hear, but how often does this have to be done?
Is it 10 years?
So this is it was on a 10-year cycle. Middle States has changed it. It's now an 8-year cycle.
Oh.
And it's 8 years from start to start. So 5 years when we turn it in, we will start it again in 2028, I believe, is the date, or 2027. Yeah, 2027. So start looking for other people to chair this.
Is that your
We're
3
keeping our
years
head-
notice? Other questions? Comments? Oh, go ahead.
I just was wondering what the topics would be or what they would be covering for the College Council meeting on November 19th.
It's a great question, and unfortunately, we're not 100% sure. Dr. Williams is fantastic. We've met with her a few times, has a really extensive background in all 4 of our priority areas. Because obviously we're in the Suny system, the meeting with the College Council differs significantly from, let's say, a private school, because a lot of the governing body duties is through the Suny Board of Trustees as opposed to College Council. So typically this meeting is just making sure that that there is engagement of seeing from your perspective what you're seeing on the priority areas, and just having that dialogue to prepare for when the external team is here. And we can certainly reach out to Dr. Williams in advance and see if there's anything in particular that she would like to be covering with you.
Thank you. All right.
And that's 11 o'clock on the 19th.
11 to 11,
1
1
o'clock.
to 1:15 on the 19th via Zoom. As I think the only council member who was here for previous Middle States when we actually had physical meetings, as I recall, what they mostly talked about was how we felt about our role. I mean, they know that, we're under the umbrella of this big board of trustees that are the final deciders. But they also wanted to know about communication on the campus and, interaction with the president and staff, that kind of thing. It was pretty general. They're not going to give you a test or anything like that. And they only have 15 minutes, and if everybody shows up, we won't have a great deal of time, but I'm sure they would also entertain follow-up communications. So, does that answer your question?
And if I may add, this is a prelude to the big review visit in April. So
it's a dress rehearsal.
A dress rehearsal, and I would envision that one may be, there may be more inquiry-based and asking you questions based on the report itself.
Yep.
So I don't think there's going to be, I wouldn't guess there would be much inquisition on the 19th of
You don't
April.
have to cram for it, so you're okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We're trying to get back to the, Blair, would you yield the floor to Melissa, who has the, all right, thank you. The gentleman from the Faculty Senate yields to the lady from administration. This is a congressional hearing, so you want to sit at the table?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
think I've been watching too much CNN or C-SPAN, or both.
All right, so I have just a couple items from my report that I wanted to highlight. From Environmental Health and Safety, our director is actually going to be serving as the incident commander for the World University Games in
great.
2023. So as Dr. Quinn said, that's a pretty exciting opportunity for the campus. And he did that actually for the last month at our mass vaccination site at Maxey Hall. So that's exciting. In terms of HR, we have transitioned to weekly testing for unvaccinated employees, and that is through the end of the year, through December 31st. Right now, we are at 83% fully vaccinated employees, or at least people who have chosen to show proof of full vaccination. Right now, any employee that's in a bargaining unit does not have to be vaccinated, but our MC employees do. And then I just wanted to highlight, there was a change for physical plant. We have actually appointed an assistant director for physical plant, and she will be starting in November. I'm very excited. I'll take any questions.
Questions?
Are you tracking boosters as well?
We are not tracking boosters at this time, no.
There's not even any way on the Empire passport to show that you've had a booster?
Is that a question or a
No, I'm
statement?
just telling you, so I don't know how you would track it, unless people volunteered.
Right.
When Melissa was talking about physical plant, when I was talking about some departed people, I neglected Carl Betts, who just died recently, so my thoughts are with his family as well. And I'm sure you've been busy, because we've got a lot of moving pieces going on.
It has been busy, yeah.
Yeah. Anyone? Harold? Jeff? You're all set? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melissa. And now, Blair. He has the best shirts, I must say. They come across even on the Zoom Faculty Senate meetings. He always looks like he's in Hawaii or on the way.
Everybody who's up there.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yes.
hope you'll forgive my attire. It's Friday, and on Fridays, I always wear a bright shirt
That's right, to
to
class.
entertain my students. It's been a tradition for, I don't know, at least 15 years, maybe longer. And this one's particularly good because it came from my stepfather, who was an employee of the Metro Transit Authority in the city. So
Oh, it's
we
all
get to pay
graffiti.
honor to the subway system.
Oh, I like it.
Which I really, really like. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I wasn't with you earlier. I was teaching class, which is a privilege and a joy to me. I wanted to, my report's got a number of things on it. I'll just hit a couple of them, and you can ask me questions if you wanted me to talk about other ones. I just wanted to start it by pointing out exactly my role as Faculty Senate Chair. I realized in my many times I've reported to this body, I have never spoken formally about what it means to be a Faculty Senate Chair, and so that's the first paragraph that I have in my report. According to the Board of Trustees, everyone who's an employee in the non-classified service on our campus is considered a faculty member within our shared governance on campus. So although I greatly appreciate the thanks for the 3 teaching faculty members that were in the room, there's many other of our members here for our purposes of shared governance that we consider faculty members. And every one of them has a single vote, including our president, Dr. Graham, including our provost, everyone else. Each one of us is a faculty member and has a single vote in the body that's called the faculty of the State University of New York. Of course, that body is large and unwieldy, and so in order to actually make decisions, we create a representative body that's called the Faculty Senate, where various units each get representation, and that turns into about 60 members called delegates, and they meet about once a month during the school year, and I am privileged to be the chair of that Faculty Senate and to help guide our participation in shared governance. I wanted to tell you personally that getting back in the classroom this fall was really exciting. I have to tell you that I and many faculty members had a lot of trepidation around the safety of being in the classroom with students, around the safety of having so many of us close together. And yet it was immediately obvious in the first 3 minutes of class how much joy was in the students' faces, how much more they were able to pay attention to what we were doing, how much more engaged they were. To be honest with you, I never felt more appreciated in my life than I did at the beginning of classes this semester. So that's a really great thing. My students still seem to appreciate class, but they're sort of getting back to normal. They wouldn't complain if I canceled class, but we try really hard in my department to never, ever cancel class. I wanted to point out a few other things. At the end of last spring, after the last meeting I spoke with you, our faculty senate passed a resolution asking that the academic calendar change that was coming be delayed by a year. And President Esterberg at the time supported our resolution. And so not this academic year, but the following academic year, there will be a change in the time of our calendar. And I know the provost currently has a task force, a group of people working on accommodating the changes that are needed to make that work. What else did I want to say? We've had 2 faculty senate meetings so far. One of them was yesterday, actually. We've also had a really good Q&A session with our administrators where we got to hear, basically ask a lot of questions and get a lot of answers about various things. As you know, at this point, we are in the process of going through a realignment process, which will, I think, almost certainly be the largest change to this campus in the entire time it's been part of Suny. And it's a very major and serious undertaking. Some of the faculty are really having a struggle in understanding how we participate in shared governance in this regard. As you might be aware, most of the faculty are not management confidential and therefore are members of the UUP union, and we have a responsibility to our brothers in the union not to participate in making direct decisions about their jobs and their future. And yet at the same time, we want as faculty to provide the right information, the right input that would allow people to make careful, logical, sensible decisions for the campus. And so I can tell you that as Provost Bergeron mentioned, the department chairs are currently preparing reports and preparing information, but I can tell you honestly that many of them have a lot of trepidations about participating in this process at all. I think at the end of the day, they all will participate in the process because they see the importance of it, but that alone, beginning part of the process, is a struggle for us at times. Although I think anybody who's realistic would recognize that it's necessary. This is a place that we have probably should have gotten to many years ago, and as much as it's going to be very difficult, it's important that we undertake this process. I wanted to mention a bit about Zoom. Our faculty senate meetings for the last 18 months or more have all been held over Zoom, and this fall we continued to hold our faculty senate meetings over Zoom, despite the fact that we could theoretically meet in Kellis Hall in 106 and have our meetings. We're meeting over Zoom because of overwhelming demand from the faculty themselves. There were a few people who asked that we meet over Zoom because of health conditions, but interestingly enough, that was not the major consideration. We have a large number of people who throughout the pandemic have discovered that they like to come to faculty senate meetings. They like to stay informed of what's going on campus. And when they're able to do that over Zoom, they're also able to accommodate their childcare responsibilities. They're able to accommodate whatever else is going on in their family. I know people who sit and fry hamburger for their dinner while they listen to the faculty senate meeting. I hope they don't burn their hamburger when I say something crazy, but and this seems like a small thing, but it's not. It's a big thing. It really is a big thing. When we had faculty senate meetings before, we would typically have 40 to 50 people show up for a meeting in this room, and that seemed pretty full. Even though there was probably 60 delegates, we'd have quorum by having 40 to 50 people here. When we have a meeting now, we have a minimum of 100 participants, and many days we have 120, 130, or 150 participants. So I really think our ability to communicate in many ways has improved. We've lost some things as well, but I think we've really gained something, and so we're anxious not to lose that. So next semester, we may try doing some hybrid things like you're doing here today, But I will tell you, as somebody who spent the first 20 minutes of this meeting is sitting in my office, this is far from ideal. And for a small group like this, I think hybrid can work. I'm a little trepidatious about how we can make it work effectively for 150 people. We're going to try. And if we can find a way to do it well, we'll do it. And if not, I suspect we're going to continue purely over Zoom because of the efficiency of it in communicating with people. The Faculty Senate is participating in a number of different initiatives. Our standing committees are hard at work. I'd just like to mention 4 of them. Our admissions committee is, as always, reviewing our admissions criteria, but one of the issues they're thinking about particularly is Dr. Graham's idea of the rise of the C student and taking that into consideration for our admissions standards. Our Goals and Planning Committee is reviewing the Mission Vision Pledge and the Potsdam Graduate. That was partly something we were requested to do because of the Middle States review and see whether or not these mission-type documents are still relevant since the last time they've been revised. Our Academic Policy Standards Advising Committee has already made a change to some of our standards that would allow students who participate in programs on other campuses, but full programs of our college. I'm thinking of our programs that we have at Jefferson Community College. Because of some vagary of the rules, those students in past were never able to qualify for honors graduation. And so they've moved to fix that right away, and so that those students would be eligible to receive honors when they graduate. And because of that, they're also looking at all the other kinds of policies like that that could affect students that are in programs that aren't immediately on this physical campus at all times. And finally, the Graduate Affairs Committee is considering implementing a graduate academic standing, similar to what the undergraduate academic standing is, as a way of making sure that none of our graduate students just sort of slip through the cracks. We want to make sure that we keep track of all of them and keep them on, path to success. I will stop there. I'll thank you very much for your service to this college. It really helps us to know that we have the council behind us, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Blair. Questions, comments for Blair? Some of you may remember that Blair stepped up to the plate to be the leader of the Faculty Senate after the previous person was no longer doing it. So Blair jumped right into the fire with both feet. He's doing a great job. And speaking personally, I have attended more faculty meetings than ever before because of Zoom. I mean, the convenience of it. I mean, it's nice to see everybody, but if you do it often enough, after a while, you recognize people by their face, and most aren't required to have a mask on during the meeting, so you can see what they really look like. Well,
Yeah, I agree with you.
Regards to the Harold?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I've finally gotten very accustomed to doing Zoom meetings, and it is very convenient.
Well, we appreciate your attendance.
Yes, I'd just like to say that Chairperson O'Neill has done a great job of participating in our faculty meetings, something that I never experienced before. She came physically to a meeting when I first was chair, and since then she's been, I think, at every meeting over Zoom. I have her on my special email list so that she gets the announcements of it. If any of the rest of you at any time would like to attend our meetings, if you just let Diane know, she can make sure that you get added to that special mailing list as well. Of course, there's no obligation to come, but if you want to get those emailings, then just let us know.
Yeah, and you can just observe. Most of the time I don't say anything, but I just kind of like to know.
Thank you very
Anybody
much.
else? Okay, thank you. You and your shirt are free to go. I had forgot about the Friday shirt thing. And Blair, usually when you go to the Faculty Senate meeting, he has like some kind of a tropical.
We're a master.
Virtual, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Josie, are you there?
I think she said they have a college council meeting there too, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll move on in the agenda, and if she is able to join us again. Josie is the regional, what's the?
Chief Financial, Regional Chief
Regional
Financial.
Chief Financial Officer. You remember that When President Esterberg was here, she had mentioned a couple of times that there's a memorandum of understanding that Dr. Esterberg signed.
Right.
2 years?
No, actually, it was this year, April.
No, but I mean, how long is the,
Oh, well,
we're in the pilot
yeah,
year
we're in the pilot phase of a, I don't.
of a multi-year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Josie is physically on the SUNY Plattsburgh campus, where she is the CFO and the vice president for, I'm not good with titles.
Thank you.
So, and the budget forums are coming up, right, Diane? The ones that Josie's doing, the budget forums?
Well, we have one October 6th.
Oh, yeah,
and
but
we're not going to get the next one June until spring.
Oh, spring, all right, I'm sorry, I stand corrected on that. All right. Okay, Sal, your turn in the hot seat. It's nice and warm for you now.
Even better. Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from the advancement team. In consideration of the time and the colleagues that will be presenting after me, I'm just going to report on one topic here this afternoon.
Would it be money?
Of course, and how we make more.
Yes.
This was a fundraising opportunity that had a very short window, and I think it's a great example of how a mature advancement team can evaluate opportunities that come along and then pivot and be creative and capitalize on those opportunities. And this is the Suny Charitable Tax Credit Program. We were notified of this about a month and a half ago, and we were given 3 weeks to use this opportunity to advantage. And this is a program that allows individuals to make gifts to Potsdam and receive up to an 85% New York State tax credit for their gift. Not a deduction, but a tax credit. That would mean, for example, a $10,000 gift, your tax credit is $8,500. That means the bottom line, your gift only costs you $1,500. It's an incredible opportunity, and we were one of only 2 SUNY units that took this opportunity at the beginning and ran with it. Over the 3-week time period, we raised $540,000, which for Potsdam is just a fantastic amount of money, and I'm so proud of the team for what they did in that regard. The program has been extended through November 22nd. So if anybody listening, or if you know of anyone, friends of Potsdam, that may want to take advantage of this program, they should see me directly, and some neat things involved with this. So I think I'll leave it right there. If anybody has questions about my report or the program, happy to answer.
Questions, comments?
Are you hearing anything about maybe that program coming back yearly or annually? Or?
This is the 3rd year of the program. This is the 1st year that we have been eligible to participate.
Okay.
And we certainly hope it will be back in the future. It's a response to legislation around 2017 that limited the ability to deduct your taxes, your property taxes on your New York State tax return.
Can you comment on the first time we've been eligible? The first time we've been eligible, does that mean just SUNY Potsdam, or does that mean this SUNY New York?
The SUNY units.
Okay, all right. I didn't want to know if it was specific to us.
No, all SUNY units.
Anything else? No, thank
Okay,
you. And,
great. Thank you all.
give our thanks to the team. Okay, Patrick Quinn, it's your turn. Should I say, come on down? You could win a washing machine, Patrick. would rather take 100 students.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And $1 million.
You know, maybe it's appropriate, and when you're sitting in this chair and being in upstate New York, kind of acting like a deer in the headlights sometimes. I know when I drive up from Utica, I come in from Utica periodically, I keep an eye out for deer, so. Hopefully you had a chance to read the report. There's certainly a lot in there. I would say captured in 3 areas. One is, you know, where we ended up this past fall in comparison to last year, and then also in comparison to what maybe our goals might be moving forward for new freshmen, new transfer, graduate students, et cetera. The second would be dealing mostly with changes in personnel. You know, we've had some folks depart, like a lot of our respective offices on campus. But people, I think the common theme is people stepping up and taking on more responsibility and ultimately being more accountable. So that speaks to, we have an interim director of admissions, Terry Francis, who's been at Potsdam for many years, and a number of positions in financial aid and student accounts. And then the third component is, you know, clearly referring back to Dr. Graham's comment about the 4-point enrollment strategy. And like he certainly says, that it's not his 4-point enrollment strategy, it's our 4-point enrollment strategy. So the institution admissions is driving the bus in many regards, but my time here has really been spent obviously getting to know Potsdam a lot better, so that I feel comfortable speaking about Potsdam when I'm out there recruiting students, but getting to know the faculty and staff who do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the work of the institution, but also their willingness and interest to participate in the recruitment initiatives that we're putting out there as part of our plan. We've broken down the 4-point enrollment strategy into manageable action plans with different folks responsible for those plans within admissions, within recruitment. And, you know, I think from my perspective and certainly the perspective of my colleagues, that having that kind of roadmap, if you will, helps you focus on the task at hand. It could be very overwhelming, like any job in higher ed, but particularly on the faculty and the academic side and as well as admissions. Having that structure in place, I think, helps guide us and gets us to really focus on what we need to do to get the job done. So that being said, I think we're very excited about the reopening of campus and by extension, being able to visit high schools in person and attending college fairs in person. As you would expect, some families are still hesitant to kind of come to a larger campus event. And we have about 90 families expected to arrive for tomorrow's open house, which is smaller than we would like. However, I will point out we have 12 families on campus today doing individual visits. Nice. And we've had a lot more activity like that throughout the summer. So we are seeing our visit numbers pick up. And clearly being in person, I think we can really showcase what the Potsdam experience might look for their students. So I'm happy to take questions or really give full life to what the hot seat means. I mean, I'm used to it and I actually embrace it. So any questions, I'm happy to take at this point.
Questions? What can we do to help?
Well, I think, you know, managing expectations is something that I think I take responsibility for within the admissions office and within the enrollment division. I think really supporting, as Dr. Graham has highlighted, not necessarily to come and ask for money to do certain things, but, you know, maybe recognizing that your ability to interact with other folks on campus and emphasize how important it is for people to be involved some way, shape, or form. And then it's our job to really corral that energy and that incitement and put it to good use. So I think just supporting, you know, involvement, generally speaking. I wouldn't ask you to do something individually, although you might be interested in doing it. I think, you know, doing it out of your own interest in your own time, we certainly would embrace that as well.
And of course, singing the praises of Potsdam to everyone who is a potential student and their parents. I just personally want to ask you, what was your favorite moment about the trip to the city with Dr. Graham?
Well, I think it started off, we were sitting on the Amtrak train, getting ready to depart Albany. And, a woman was kind of fumbling through the aisle, trying to figure out where to sit. She had a very large, kind of old-fashioned shopping cart. And I would describe her as kind of a personality. But what I think I really enjoyed about that exchange was who was the first person to engage with that individual and kind of reach out and say, hey, share my space, sit down, be comfortable, was Dr. Graham. And that really struck me as an example of, how we should be with others in our sphere. That, again, was the start of the trip. The other part of the trip is he and I are both sport fans, so we got to exchange stories and experiences in our world when we were younger, athletes as well, but we have a lot of in common things there. So the conversation was interesting and genuine. And then getting down to doing the business, I loved his energy in speaking with not only the principal and the guidance counselors, but quite honestly, the students. So I think I can learn an awful lot from his approach and his style.
Other questions?
I'd just like to say that, Dr. Graham's presentation and yours, you can see the energy and the willingness to get after it. And I think just having that and creating that united front across everyone, like you keep talking and keep pushing, is just a great way forward. I'm really excited to see what's to come.
Absolutely. I am too.
June, I just have a very quick comment. When you talk about the college council, like I'm new, I don't even know my way around. So if there are people that I need to meet, high schools and all that, I would love to do it. I know my team here knows, but if I can meet folks, I would love to do that. Because I don't know everyone, but I would love to be able, if there's a thread that you can help me get to, I'll be where you need me to be.
Can you set up a meeting with Pat Brady for John? Yep. He's the superintendent of
Good.
Schools.
Right.
Messina.
And we'll do Mr. Burke and
You can do, Magic
Right.
Waddington.
That's what I need. Yep.
That kind of thing. And that's everybody, don't have to be on the council. I just want to ask Diane and our IT guys, after we finish the 2 remaining reports, would it be possible to pull up the video clip of Dr. Graham? I know it's on the website. It's the one of him first when he's walking out of Knowles, when he first got here. You know what I mean? If it's not a huge...
The funnel. The funnel.
No, the one that, is the funnel in that clip?
That's the brief one, or you want the other one? There's one longer one, there's a funnel. There's 2. I think.
Yeah, the one that I was thinking of was the very first one when he came to campus.
Right, the funnel.
The introduction of him walking around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one, and it shows Maxie and, him in the stands with
Yeah.
one of those hands that say number 1 or something. He's a number 1 fan. Excuse me, I got it. Okay, thank you very much, Patrick.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Patrick.
And now Eric Dersherer, who is our interim dean of
Students. Yes.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. I want to mention 2 quick things. One, to follow Pat in terms of enrollment. I'm really proud, and this is under athletics in my report, that our coaches continue to do a tremendous job recruiting. In fact, 13% of the student body right now are athletes, and that's an extraordinary percentage. Coaches have done terrific jobs doing outreach, expanding their rosters. And so I'm really proud of the work that they've done. As a custom, the other area I certainly can talk about is student testing and vaccination. As I've reported before, our students continue to be extraordinarily responsive to testing and vaccines. As I think all of you know, just prior to the start of the semester, we were able to require vaccines. It was about a week before classes started, so the bulk of the fall semester has been transitioning into testing and the vaccine mandate. As you can see under the student health report, I'm pleased to report 98% of the student body is fully vaccinated. The other 2% have approved exemptions. Per the Suny requirements, I'm pleased to say we did not have to disenroll any students, 0. Again, a real testament not only to our students, but as Dr. Graham pointed out earlier, Tracy Harcourt and her team in student health have been magnificent in their work, not only with vaccines, but contact tracing and testing. So we've tested over 14,000 students throughout the course of the semester. We are just transitioning into doing less testing. We tested all students earlier in the semester. We then pivoted to testing all students every other week for a couple of weeks. And now we're down to testing just our exempted students, as well as a small cohort of students who are identified through contact tracing. So we did 346 students just earlier this week. We have a relatively small number of positive cases that are active right now, mostly off campus. The current cases that we have are isolated to one of our athletic teams. But again, our students have been tremendously responsive because, as you've heard others say, they want to be here, they want to be on campus, they want to be in classes, they want to be at SGA meetings, they want to be participating in curricular and co-curricular activities. So given that we're short on time, I'll stop there and happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Go ahead.
Eric, how does our vaccination rate rate with other universities, colleges, and is that used in any sort of recruitment?
I can't answer the question about recruitment, but our campus percentages that I just shared are very similar across Suny. They're pretty consistent in having about 2% of campus populations across Suny with approved either religious or medical exemptions, and a really high vaccination rate in the upper 90s like we have, especially now that we're in the latter half of the fall semester and the vaccine mandate has been prevalent for the bulk of the semester.
Eric, do either you or Alex or anybody have a number of how many people were vaccinated at Maxey?
Just over 86,000.
86,000?
Inoculations, so that might be divided by 2. I think it's in this thing, actually.
Oh, wow. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, we've done some clinics on campus as our students came back if they
Yep.
needed first or second doses.
Yep.
We've also, in our testing on the 18th, where we had all students testing after fall recess, gave almost 300 flu shots to students as we were testing. So again, our students are looking for that health and safety bonus. Certainly as the college age population becomes eligible for boosters, we'll work with St. Lawrence County Public Health, I'm sure, to have booster clinics on campus later in the fall semester, again, once, or maybe in the spring, depending on when the traditional age college population becomes eligible for boosters.
87,346 doses were given. I'm going to say probably about 500 of those were J&Js. That's the one time.
Yep.
And then if you divided by
By
2.
two.
So somewhere in the 40-some thousand range.
Pretty significant number. And there were some stories in the press at the time that what were they calling it, vaccination tourism? There were people who actually came from other areas, and in some cases other states, to get their vaccination. And
People were flying private planes into the Messina and Potsdam airports to come for vaccination.
Excuse me.
Oh, wow. We had one plane from Venezuela.
Really?
New York City resident that was down there flew
Wow.
up with 2 pilots so they could make it in one
Oh, my goodness.
straight.
Oh, my
and
God.
Got off the plane, drove to Potsdam to Maxey Hall,
Sal,
Got
did
the
you
shot
meet with
and
those
went back.
people and see if they would care to give a donation to the college?
I'm just glad they didn't tell us that they did that, because we would have had to tell them they couldn't come in.
Oh, yeah.
Donate the plane.
They could donate the plane, this is true. Then you and Patrick could go even more places more
Right.
often. All right, thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Claudia, are you still with us?
I am still
Hi.
here.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you for your patience.
Yes, of course.
Now, Dr. Claudia Ford is once again our interim Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion while the search continues. And so thank you again for stepping in, Claudia. We appreciate it. So the floor is
You
yours.
are very, I'm sorry?
The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. There's a little bit of a delay. Sorry about that, and you're very welcome. I know we're short on time. There are 3 things I would like to say to my report, and I'll keep it brief. The first thing is I'm still here, and I'm very glad to be here. I feel like this division is all about making sure that all members of our community have a good experience while they are part of this community. And that's important work that I do with my team. I'm very proud of the work of Clifton Harcum, and we're very glad to have Andrea Waters join us as the Title IX coordinator. The second thing I wanted to say is that the report that I submitted was a little bit thinner, perhaps, than what you're used to. And I felt like I needed to be very honest about that and why. We had this interesting phenomenon that I think you may have heard about, where people were reassessing their relationship to work during the pandemic, especially the beginning part of the pandemic, when people were very isolated and doing remote work, and we weren't quite sure of the vaccines yet. And so we had a demographic within our staff that at least 5 of the 7 people who left in the last 18 months fell in that group. And so I just wanted to be very upfront that, we did lose staff, and it was definitely because of the pandemic. And then the third thing I wanted to say is, and I don't think I said this well enough in the report, so I apologize, is we are, however, still serving the students and faculty and staff who fall under those programs. Very specifically, our gender and sexuality coordinators, who that office right now is vacant, but we continue to do training and work directly with those student groups. And we're very excited to say that the group of Native American students came to us to ask if they could reinvigorate the Native American Students Club. They had once been an officially recognized club, and they asked us how they could do that again. So we got them in touch with SGA leadership, and they are going through that process of becoming officially recognized again as a club. So I didn't want anyone to think that we weren't still serving those offices, even while we're dealing with the challenges of being short-staffed. I'm going to leave it there and please ask for any questions. I'm happy to explain any of it.
Thank you, Claudia. So when the Native American students came to you, did you just give them Nick's home phone number and tell him he's the president?
We didn't, but actually we sat down with them. We had a few meetings with them. They had a lot of questions. They wanted to know what their options were, resources. So it was a series of meetings. We continued to meet with them. But no, Nick, we didn't give away your home number.
Okay.
Clifton actually brought them by my office, and we got them set up in their we're getting close
Oh,
to the
good.
end of that
So
process.
they're going through the
Yeah,
process.
we're getting that done as quick as we can.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Thank you, Claudia. We appreciate you, too.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay. That's the end of the formal agenda. Do we have any old business? Any new business? Diane, what's the date of our next meeting?
December 10th.
10th. Okay. December 10th is our next meeting. Were you able to pull that clip up?
Give me one moment.
I just think it's worth seeing.
I'm a stress eater and I'm a comfort eater and I'm looking for.
That's not Dr. Graham. No, here we go.
Hi, I'm John Graham, campus leader at Suny Potsdam. I'm super excited to be here. This is a fantastic campus. I'm having a great experience, a great orientation. So far, it's going exceptionally well. Guess what, folks? I'm staying on campus. I'm at Knowles Hall. Been there a couple weeks now, but I'll be there a couple more weeks. What a fantastic place to learn. And I gotta tell you, coming out of New York City, we're in another country right now. I decided that I wanted to come far because I wanted to go far. I had my first visit to Maximo. That is a fantastic facility. I'm going to be the biggest fan of Potsdam Bears this season. And you're not going to find anybody more passionate about athletics than I am. I'm a former college Division I athlete, so I support athletics, and I'm going to be supporting our students' athletes 100%. I look forward to attending outstanding performances at the Crane School Music or the talented theater and dance students showcasing their skills inside the performing arts center. It's an exciting time as you transition back into the classroom. And like the hardworking geography students I've met recently working in the lab, many of you will soon be busy working on a variety of research projects at the college, which will help you prepare for graduate school and careers in your fields of study. Students are the reason why we do this important work. You're the life and the blood of our institution, and I will be giving you the most respect that you rightfully deserve. And each and one of our colleagues, our faculty, our staff, and our community writ large, we all possess one of the most important elements in our education. We have the care team. We've come a long way from 200 years, and we got many more years to go. And we're going to do everything we can to reimagine this institution and move us from now to next.
Well done on a number of different levels. I mean, and I think, as I said before, it really sort of encapsulates the essence of John Graham. And we're excited.
Thank you.
And, you know, he made sort of passing reference to as a former Division I athlete. Guess what sport?
Basketball.
Basketball, yeah. What was the giveaway?
The
mask.
The mask, that was it, yeah, exactly.
The shot that he took on
Oh, well. So, any other new business? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Harold?
Did he move?
Harold, do you make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, yeah, I did. I'm sorry, I must be on mute.
That's okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and second that we
Making
adjourn.
as many,
All those in
motions as
favor?
Rich Tiverio goes.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, hearing none. Thank you very much. We'll see you on December 10th. And since we all have our masks on, happy Halloween early.
I like that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank Thank you.